Hi, thank you all for joining us today to talk about mental health wellness in the workplace. This podcast is brought to you by SIA, a not-for-profit trade organization in the global security industry, driven by volunteers. SIA provides education, certifications, standards, advocacy, and events which connect the industry. I'm Lori Hudnall. I'm the Director of Human Resources at Sage Integration, and I will be your moderator today. Joining me are three industry experts. First, we have Anna Yates. She is the VP of Talent and Culture at Z-Beta. Next, we have Diana Nunez, and she is a human resource leader at iPros Americas Incorporated. And last but certainly not least, we have Maria Castellanos, and she is a global accounts manager at Convergent. Welcome, ladies. So if each one of you could take just a few minutes to introduce yourself a little more in detail, I would appreciate it. I'd like to start with Anna.
Hi, thank you for having me today. So as you mentioned, I'm the VP of Talent and Culture at Z-Beta, which is a physical security design and consulting firm. And while I have over 20 years of HR experience, I am new to the security industry, just finishing up my second year here at Z-Beta.
Thank you. Would you like to go next, Diana?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. I am Diana Nunez, the HR Director for iPro Americas. We are a global versatile. We have lots of different products, but we specifically focus on the surveillance, we're in public safety, and also in the medical business. And I have been with iPro for about 1.5 years now. Previously, I was in the oil and gas industry.
Thank you. And Maria, would you like to bring us home?
Sounds good. Thank you, Lori. So I'm Maria Castellanos. I'm a global accounts manager with Convergent, which is the largest systems integrator in the world.
Thank you. So before we dive into our discussion, I'd like to just provide you with some more information about the podcast. For the last 10 years, we have all heard about it's important to have a work-life balance. And unless you create boundaries in your professional life, you will always feel overworked. In the post-COVID-19 remote work environment, however, where snow days are a thing of the past and workers now sign into meetings while they're sitting in doctor's office, how do you draw the line anymore? In this episode, we will discuss the responsibility you have to your mental wellness and how companies can foster mental health and wellness and how to check in with yourself. Some statistics that I'd like to start off with, just the importance of this topic. An article in Harvard Business Review back in October of 2019 stated that at that time, over 2 million work days were lost due to mental health conditions each year, and that 60% of employees never talked about it at work with anyone. Many employees feel that their employers do not prioritize this awareness, and the company leaders are not advocates for it. Mental health awareness demographics also play a big role in today's world in who is seeking help and who still believes they can't talk about it. Then I had an opportunity Friday to speak with Adriana Proncheco from United Healthcare. And she was telling me that mental and behavioral health is on the rise. 1 in every 5 American adults are affected by mental, behavioral, or substance abuse. And United Healthcare said that their 2022 spending in outpatient mental health went up by 37% over 2021. So with those and we have more statistics to share with you, but let's dive right into our first question. So how do you disconnect at home as a remote worker? I'd like to start with Anna. How do you disconnect at home as a remote worker?
Yeah, thanks, Lori. So Z-Beta, we are a 100% remote workforce. And so, I think it is really important to figure out how to establish those boundaries between work and home. I literally work in my kitchen. So I'm sitting here looking over and seeing the things that need to be done while I'm also working. And so, for me, a few things that I do to kind of establish those boundaries, especially, to sign off at the end of the day, I actually set limits on my apps. So my work email, my work calendar, my Teams notifications, those all get locked down by my phone at 7 p.m. And so if I am getting in after hours per se, it's intentional because I have to go through a couple of steps to be able to access that. But that's just one little tip I would say as far as, establishing boundaries is figuring out where those lines get blurry for you and how you might be able to kind of put some guardrails in place to make sure that they don't blur as much as they could.
Thank you. And what time did you say you shut down each day?
Well, I said I shut down my apps shut down at 7 p.m. I shut down, like I walk away from my computer at a more reasonable hour, say 5:30.
Awesome. Thank you. And Maria, let's go to you next. And I believe, are you more remote than you are in the office?
Yes, that is correct. One of the larger challenges that I would say I face in my current role is that with global accounts, there's quite a few different time zones that I need to be available for. So I do try to, at least during the weekends, put limits similar to what Anna does on the hours that I spend on it. So for instance, after Friday, I will most likely uninstall both Microsoft Teams and Outlook from my phone. That way, even if I've got 5-10 minutes free that weekend, I won't look into it and then end up working for another extra couple of hours. And then I also try to have hobbies so that after hours, I'm kind of forced to leave the house and go exercise and decompress, those kind of things.
Thank you. That seems a bit like extra work to uninstall on Friday and then reinstall on Monday. Does it take you long?
It takes less than 5 minutes, but it does save me about 2 to 8 hours of work on the weekends. So to me, it's worth my mental wellness.
Absolutely. And Diana, how about you? How do you work all remote or do you have a blended?
So we actually are fully remote right now, except for our warehouse employees. But I do go into the office about a couple times a month, either for meetings or to go and check in the office. And the rest of the employees are as well. However, we are doing a collaboration office space. And so in this fall, if you want to come into the office and collaborate, the office will be open for everyone to come into. And as far as what I do as a mom of a 1-year-old and a 9-year-old, I have to follow a schedule because I do find myself sometimes working a lot longer than I should. And so I really just set the schedule. I'm there in the core hours working, but then as soon as the 4:30, 5 o'clock hits, I disconnect by walking away and keeping my cell phone away from the dinner table. And then if, there's a lot of things pending or I need to focus on something else because I do have to work with Japan and other countries that are different time zones, I will connect just briefly 8-9 o'clock before going to bed. So I do at least make sure to make that time for my children and core hours at work, but then the core hours at dinner, that quality time, I make sure to keep open just for them.
And with you and Maria, you say you have work with other countries. Do you have a dedicated office in your house, maybe in the basement or somewhere where it doesn't disturb the rest of your family?
I do. I have, I'm actually in my office right now. So I have a dedicated office. I close the doors and everyone knows when those doors are closed, you do not come in. When they're open, that means you may come in and say something to me.
And how about you, Maria?
Exactly the same. I've got a dedicated workspace at home. It is separated from anywhere else in the house. It's on a different floor level. So that way I can know when it's work time and when it's family or off hours time. It helps me have a little bit better of a work-life balance.
Yes, and I'm mostly in the office. When I do work remotely from home, I'm like Anna. I sit at the kitchen table and I'll take calls from there. And most of the time, my children are grown, so it's just me and my dog during the day. But every once in a while, you'll hear the dog bark, and I'll have to mute it really quick before anybody else hears it. But it works out, and I do a lot of work while I'm at the house. I call after call, meeting after meeting, and it works out real well. It does balance sometimes when you got to be there for, a heating repair person, or maybe they're working on your yard outside and you have to be there to let them in the backyard or something. So I do a little bit of that. Well, thank you all. So let's move on to the next topic, and that is in a leadership role. So we're all in leadership roles. What tips can you provide to keep the same new higher energy in employees with employees that are 3.5 years in or 5 years into their role? And I'd like to start with Diana today with this question.
Absolutely. I think it's very important to keep people engaged, and I think it really is a blend of both responsibility of the employee and also of the manager and the company to do so. I really like the opportunity for employees to raise their hand and do stretch assignments, or raise their hand and say, hey, I think I'm starting to get at the peak of my, I'm capping out here as far as knowledge or anything else I can do in my role. Is there anything else I can do? Is there another department I can go into? So we really encourage that actually at iPro, and that really shows the engagement level. We have a lot of people that are very happy. Sure, are there times that people are feeling like they're starting to get burnt out? Absolutely. I think you will find that no matter where you go. However, it's very important for the manager to also listen and say, okay, I need to do something, right? So how can I help you? And communicate with HR as well. Is there anything else that is going on around the organization you can get engaged in, employee resource groups, or just networking? Sometimes people just need to be able to get out and see what else others are doing. So I do think it's important to keep people engaged. It's the organization, it's the manager, and it's also the employee's responsibility just as much.
Thank you. And Anna, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I think to build on what Diana said, I 100% agree, that it is a collaboration between the company, the employee, and the manager. I think there are tools that can be put in place to help support employees so that, that they can understand, after you've been with an organization for 3+ years, really understanding where could I go in my career. One of the things that we have done here at Z Beta is to create a role matrix and career maps. So folks can really see, okay, what's expected of me in this role? Where could I go? What do I need to do, learn, experience to be able to progress? The other thing that I think, as folks have been within an organization for 3+ years, they really become SMEs, whether that's in their role or that's about the organization. And I think it's a really important to tap into. So we leverage more experienced employees or more tenured employees at Z Beta as mentors for new employees. So partnering them up with newer folks to be able to help guide them through their new hire journey. And I think that creates some energy and spark because they're getting to connect with someone who's excited about the organization and excited about being there. And I think that they kind of feed off of that.
And Maria, I left you for last because I know you're not in an HR role. You're in a global accounts role, a manager. So tell me a little bit about your company and what they provide and how do they, help with you as the employee, to keep, because how long have you been there?
I've been at Convergent for 3 years.
3 years. So you're perfect. So are you still as excited as day one?
I'm very, very excited. And I do think that it has a huge impact, or one of the reasons why I'm still very motivated, it's because of the leaders at Convergent. And I really like the way that you worded the question. We're not talking about managers, we're talking about leaders. right? When the leader truly does everything possible to motivate, to facilitate the colleagues' opportunities for growth, development, and success, that colleague, I believe, won't reach a point where they're unmotivated or no longer want to try their best. And I think that convergence values and beliefs, one of them being accountability, transparency, helps you to the point of what Anna was mentioning before, right? Ensuring that you know what do you need to do to be able to achieve the next opportunity, promotion, growth within the company. And ensure also that Convergent is providing you the retroactive feedback so that you know exactly what am I doing incorrectly? How am I in 18 meetings a week, yet not achieving the results that I need? Maybe it's those kind of discussions internally where you determine, am I productive or am I busy, right? So I think that through good leadership, you're able to continue growing and staying very motivated, just the same as you were on the first day there.
Thank you. So what steps can one take to manage their mental health? So this is more about individual thoughts and how each one of us can manage, our own mental health. What works for me might not work for each one of you. So do you have some tips, takeaways that you'd like to provide to the audience that something they may not have thought of? And if you don't mind, I'll start with you, Maria.
Of course, sounds good. So I do acknowledge I'm the first one that has room for improvement, right? But I do have my couple of tricks that I try to follow. So for instance, I try to be mindful of the time that I spend talking about work versus showing interest in those items or conversation topics that are interesting or important for others around me. That helps a lot. It builds relationships outside of work, and it helps you disconnect a little bit. Playing sports, it's been proven that it helps you with, sorry, I'm not sure how to word it properly, but it just helps you stay more active. It helps you stay more productive, and it helps you stay healthier. Whenever you're healthier, well-rested, it's your work ethics and your work success, it gets exponentially enhanced.
Thank you. And Deanna, how about you?
So I think one thing that I have learned is that people sometimes are afraid to say, I really need help, or I think I'm starting to get to my limit. And so one of the things that I really encourage people to say is not be afraid to say it, not be afraid to raise your hand and say, I may need help. And, just from an HR perspective, I'm very lucky that I have built a good relationship no matter where I am in an organization. And people come to me and they say, hey, I really am starting to get at my limit here. What can I do? What kind of steps can I take? What options do I have? And sometimes I'm just a psychologist for them. I'm the people that they vent to. But other times it's just the fact that you're open and raising your hand. You can go to someone you trust in the organization and ask for help. Sometimes if you have too many projects going on and you're afraid to raise your, to say no because you don't want to disappoint someone, just be very honest about what the priorities are and what can you do and what can you not do. And I think if people would just say, you know what, I cannot handle this right now because of this, I think it will really help people's mental health in the long term.
Thank you. And Anna?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of answer maybe with a blend of both what Maria and Diana shared. I think personally, working from home, we talked about that the lines can get really blurry, and how do you create boundaries? And so I think there's a few things that you can do just to create space for yourself during the work day. So that could be simple things like meal prepping and making sure that you actually have, a meal to eat, to step away from your desk for lunch, and making sure that you are, properly taking care of yourself that way. It could be something like, hey, does this meeting need to be on camera? Could could we do it as a walk and talk and get on the move and get outside of your house for a little bit and have some activity as well as still being productive with work. And then, I think the other piece of it is it does come from leadership as far as, setting the tone as far as taking time off. Is that a mental health day? Is that just a half a day of just like, I have some stuff I need to get done. And I need to be able to take care of myself or take care of my family, and demonstrating that that's perfectly okay to do. I think, a lot of times we worry that we're stepping away from work and that it's going to be a reflection of us. And I think if we don't take those moments, it becomes even worse reflection because we're not showing up in the best way that we can. And then lastly, I would say, I feel like my role in HR, as Diana kind of said, is we blend between therapist and coach and consultants, and we wear many hats. But I think making sure that our employees know what resources are available to them, and that's not just once a year during open enrollment where we're saying, hey, these are all the benefits that you have available, but finding ways throughout the year to reinforce and remind folks to leverage those resources. And your managers can be really great advocates for that. So if your managers really understand the benefits, they're the ones usually that are hearing first if an employee is struggling, and they're the ones that are going to be able to say, hey, did you know we have an EAP? Did you know they're available 24/7? And it takes some of that pressure off of the manager to fall into that trap of becoming the therapist, and can still help create that kind of professional boundaries while they are also making sure that the employee has the resources and that they need.
And I really, really echo what you're just saying, because on Friday, last week I had an employee come to me and just said, I'm really struggling and I need some help. And what do we have available? And instantly I pulled the EAP information up. And I left him with that, but I got a hold of, like I said, our UHC, our United Healthcare person, to find out what else. And just like you said, there was so much more. And, this person is in the millennial age group. And so I was able to offer them in addition. And I went back to him and I said, hey, how did that EAP work out? Have you reached out to them? And they're like, I'm thinking about it. I've not really done anything. I said, well, let me show you some other options. And I walked them through the 24/7 telephonic. I walked them through, we now have a self-care app. And, that you could download right to your phone, and it's you and the app. So, you're not talking to another human being at the moment. You're just really bouncing your own thoughts off yourself. And this app is to help you with that and provide you some suggestions on where to go from here. So I was really, really thrilled that I could do that. And he thanked me. And then I also think that I want to send out an email this week just to everybody, because like Anna said, you see it at open enrollment for a 5-minute part of a 30-minute presentation, and then it's just glossed over. So I think I'm just going to send out a reminder with some flyers about the self-care app, about how to get on EAP, and get some telephonic sessions and see who, might really benefit from it. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And then I had one more I'd like to put out there to the panelists. And I'd like to know, in your companies, we talk a lot about DE&I, which is diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And I was reading an article that, mental health wellness is now part of the inclusivity part of the DE&I. So I was just curious, what each of your companies, if each of your companies are doing, to help move the awareness of mental health wellness and put it out in the open, and not keep it underneath the rug, so to speak. So if somebody would like to share, I'll start with you, Diana. If your company has take some initiatives in the either mental health awareness or the DE&I aspect of it, I'd love for you to share those tips, on an overview. Did you change your policies? Have you had, meetings or whatnot? What have you put into the company? What has your company put in to help employees?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have really been very strong about the DE&I journey since last year. We actually used to be part of Panasonic, and so we broke off back in 2019. And then Panasonic, it's a very, very big company. So when we moved into the small iPro group, last year, that's where we really started the big focus on this. And also part of our, I would say, benefits package. We offer a lot of things that are inclusive for everyone. So while we talk about mental health, I also want to add, whenever you have a new baby, right? If not just for mothers, but also for fathers, taking care of a baby, there's a lot of stress, a lot of things going on. So we have updated our parental leave so that it's the same for both men and women, to help everyone out. So we provide 12 weeks. We also provide 2 weeks of family sick leave. And the reason for that is if you have a spouse or your children, or you need, to take care of your family in any way, school closures, snow days, whatever the case may be, we provide an additional 2 weeks throughout the year, in addition to vacation, sick time, personal days, etc. And so the other part of this is that we're actually getting ready to implement a new system that is about recognition and employee engagement. And one of the things that we will be having throughout the year are mental health and awareness campaigns. And so those will be like, through emails and through participations, collaborations. We will also be doing things like step challenges. And so just making people aware of all the different things that they do have available. If they're looking for weight loss, if they're looking for, I don't know, something to do as a hobby, we have different perks that throughout the year we let people know. And we also put it as part of our monthly HR newsletter. What are the benefits? What are the perks? So they're just constantly there for employees to know what to do.
I like that. We have a newsletter, and I should, in my corner, my HR corner, I need to add that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Maria, can you share with us what Convergent does, some updates that they have done maybe over the last couple of years to create that awareness for mental health and for in the DE&I arena?
Of course, happy to. So Convergent has a fairly comprehensive, with lots of options, benefits package. So within it, employees can choose whatever fits best within whatever they need. As it relates specifically to diversity and inclusion initiatives, we've got a vice president just for inclusion and diversity. And we've got, I believe it is 6 to 7 different groups just within Convergent to ensure that there's truly, and not just talk about it, but action towards it. In the last year alone, we had already improved the paternity leave period. So I believe that earlier before was just over a couple of weeks, and now we're in several weeks out. Things like that are thanks to not only the volunteers that join these committees within Convergent, such as the Daily Difference Award, Convergent Women Connect, veterans, but also thanks to Convergent leadership truly listening to those suggested initiatives and policy changes, and ensuring that those are addressed and launched as part of the revised playbooks.
Thank you. And Anna, I left you for last because I'm anxious to hear what all you do there.
Oh goodness, I love, I think one of the things that I've loved about today, and as well as preparing for this conversation, was just being able to hear what other organizations are doing, and being able to up level what we're offering within Z Beta. I think right now we are a relatively small organization. We have about 85 employees, and so and being 100% remote does create some challenges as far as how you create those experiences or create those networking opportunities. So I think we have to be a little bit more intentional about how we're communicating to staff about what's available to them. We each year, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so one of the things that I've done the last couple of years is each week in our company-wide Teams channel is to highlight something regarding mental health awareness. So that could be, whether that's the EAP, whether that's, option or opportunities are available to you through our health insurance, as well as just podcasts, interesting reads. So that's one thing that we have done. I think I've mentioned it before. There is really, I think, just awareness for managers and helping to work with them to break down any stigma regarding mental health. I think it's really easy when an employee is sick or when an employee is having a baby to be able to understand why they might need to take some time away from work. It's a little bit harder when it's not something that's really visible. And maybe if it's something that you haven't experienced yourself, to wrap your head around, like, what is that person going through? And so I think one of the things that I've really done is to work with my managers directly when they have an employee who is struggling, to be able to coach the manager to get to a place where they can be empathetic, where they can be understanding, but also, for us to understand what are the business needs and what are the challenges and the stress that the manager is experiencing because this employee isn't available or this employee is struggling. So I think there's opportunity there to be able to support managers so that they can then better support their employees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank all of my experts today on panelists. I appreciate all the information that you have provided, and I hope this has been beneficial to our audience. And I want to wish you the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.